Welcome to The Explainer, where we take complex historical sources and transform them into a clear, structured journey. Today, we're doing something pretty amazing. We are looking at how tiny, seemingly insignificant items pulled right out of the earth are literally rewriting epic historical narratives. I am thrilled you're joining me to uncover these secrets. So, you might be wondering, why spend the time and, let's be honest, the money to dig up the past when we already have massive history books, archives, and official records? Well, as the sources we're looking at today reveal, the written record is heavily biased. It regularly ignores marginalized people, or in some cases just gets the facts completely wrong. But the dirt? The dirt simply doesn't lie. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover Unearthing Hidden Histories, War Relics Reexamined, Rome's Dark Deviant Burials, a prehistoric mystery, and finally, touching the past. Starting off with Section 1, Unearthing Hidden Histories. Okay, just to prevent any sort of chronological whiplash here, take a look at this timeline. It maps out the massive scope of the sites we're going to explore. We're stretching all the way from a Stone Age monument back in 3500 BCE, jumping up to the 1st century of Roman Britain, and then leaping right forward to the battlefields and safe havens of the 20th century. Let's dive into the hidden histories that completely redefine how we understand the people who came before us. Which brings us to Section 2, War Relics Reexamined. Let's start close to our own era to see exactly how archaeology can challenge what we thought we knew about 20th century warfare and its immediate aftermath. Picture this. It's 1945 in the beautiful English Lake District. Archaeologists excavated the site of a temporary hostel. Now, this wasn't some military installation. It was actually a refuge for 300 orphaned Jewish children who had literally just been liberated from Nazi concentration camps, places like Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. And the sheer humanity of the artifacts pulled from the soil it's just staggering. They didn't find weapons or military gear. They found a tiny plastic unicorn pendant, a bottle of curly-top toddler hair gel, a Venos cough medicine bottle, and even a child's mother-of-pearl penknife. These items represent this sudden, jarring shift from just unimaginable horror back to the normalcy of childhood care and, everyday magic. Think about it, going from absolutely zero medical care to just being handed some cough syrup by a nurse. These deeply intimate finds perfectly echo the words of the survivors themselves. Sam Laskia, who was one of the Windermere children, described their arrival like this. "We were in the wagon, suddenly we looked around and there were no guards. We're alive. We thought this is paradise." These everyday objects anchor a massive, horrific global tragedy directly to the hopeful relief of a single child's recovery. Stepping back just a bit to World War I, we look at a very different recent excavation, 1917, Bullecourt. The British deployed their brand new, barely tested tanks against the impenetrable German Hindenburg Line, and it was a complete catastrophe. Only 2 tanks even got near the line, and the resulting Australian infantry casualties were just devastating. And the official records of this event? Incredibly harsh. The official military report, written by Australian generals, explicitly accused the British tank crews of cowardice. They basically claimed they abandoned their allies. But as we're seeing, the dirt tells a completely different story than angry generals do. A modern archaeological team excavated the exact spot where Tank 796 broke down in the mud right directly in the line of German fire. And you know what they found? An empty 6-pounder shell casing. The discovery of this specific empty cartridge proved that Lieutenant Hugh Skinner and his crew absolutely didn't run away. They sat inside their immobilized metal box and fired at the enemy until their ammunition was completely spent and their tank was utterly destroyed. So the crucial point here is that 100 years later, a simple piece of metal finally cleared the names of these incredibly brave men. Ministry of Defense archaeologist Richard Osgood hit the nail on the head when he said, "This item is a symbol of bravery, a tale of courage." It completely nullifies the accusations of cowardice that stained their legacy for an entire century. Moving right along to Section 3, Rome's Dark Deviant Burials. Now we are plunging back nearly 2 millennia to Great Wellnatham in Suffolk, England, to investigate a highly disturbing Roman cemetery. And this really flips the script on what we typically think of as Roman civilization. History books love to praise Roman Britain for bringing order, fine mosaics, and bathhouses. But this site? It was packed with what archaeologists call deviant burials. That's essentially a grave where a body has been placed in a highly unusual, often disturbing way that goes totally against the standard funerary practices of the time.
Revealing a deeply eerie mystery, the excavation uncovered some incredibly bizarre and brutal characteristics among the 32 bodies found there. A staggering 17 of them were decapitated, and these weren't standard executions. The skulls were purposely placed between the legs after death. Some graves had extra severed feet just thrown in. But most tellingly, the skeletons showed severe ivory-like joint degradation. We're talking bones rubbed completely smooth from a total loss of cartilage.
Experts concluded this was actually a cemetery for enslaved people. That heavy bone degradation points to a grueling, painful life of forced agricultural labor, starting from a very young age. It shows us that the glorious Roman rural economy wasn't just wealthy men lounging in villas. Actually, scratch that. It was largely built on the backs of brutalized human beings. Archaeology forces us to look right at the people at the absolute bottom of the pyramid.
Let's jump into Section 4, a prehistoric mystery. Let's leap all the way back to 3,500 BCE, long before the written word even existed. A modern power line survey in Suffolk made this incredible accidental discovery. Underneath a perfectly flat, unassuming field, ground-penetrating tools found something massive: the Woodbridge Monument. It was a colossal 15-meter-wide curving ditch. Unlike Stonehenge, which obviously still stands tall today, this massive Stone Age monument had been completely leveled and just lost to time.
But by analyzing the surviving split oak timbers preserved in the wet soil, archaeologists were able to reconstruct the incredible, highly sensory ritual experience that ancient Britons actually performed here. Imagine this journey. You walk up a preserved wooden trackway to the top of a hill. You stand on a grand wooden platform. And finally, you drop offerings into natural spring water that had been intentionally redirected to rush loudly through the ditch right below you. And what exactly were they dropping into that rushing water? Well, in the deepest parts of the ditch, archaeologists found the skull of an extinct giant aurochs cow right alongside a wooden spatula that was used for churning butter and milk. Placed precisely in the water as offerings, these items show us that our earliest farming ancestors were deeply tethered to the magic, the ritual, and the sheer daily survival of agriculture. And that brings us to our final section, touching the past. So, what does this all mean? This brings us to our final takeaway about why digging through the dirt is so fundamentally important to our shared human identity. Whether it's clearing the name of a World War I tank crew a century after the fact, exposing the dark, grueling reality of Roman slavery, or uncovering the earliest agricultural rituals, archaeology pieces together the stories of the people who couldn't write the books. Artifacts give a voice to the forgotten, they correct the historical record, and they humanize these massive, epic events. The dirt simply doesn't lie. From the pungent, tarry smell of an 18th century naval rope pulled up from the sea to a little bottle of baby's hair gel belonging to a Holocaust survivor, these objects hold immense power. Every intimate item we drop or lose or discard is a future puzzle piece, just waiting to be found by someone trying to understand exactly who we were. So I want to leave you with this thought to ponder. When the future digs up our modern world hundreds or thousands of years from now, what story will our everyday objects tell about us? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking down, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the history all around you.